Hey, deserving listeners, Darcey and Stacey, season 4. Let's watch.
Are you done with your tantrum now? Did you have time to cool off?
Did you?
Yeah.
Your tantrum?
So, not a great way to start a conversation around this sort of thing, to just attack someone right off the bat. And then, of course, you get a defensive response. So, how you open a conversation like this is something to pay attention to. It's very important. It sets the tone. And often people will start a conversation like this in a way that will absolutely influence in a strong way the rest of the conversation going in a negative way. If you start with an attack, a hostility, then you already have something you have to correct for, and you might not be able to do that. You might trigger the other person. They say something back to you, and then you're off to the races. So, because in all likelihood, once you get into the conversation, there's going to be triggering happening, and there will be defensiveness and hostility potentially. So you want to hold off as long as possible before you get to that point. Like, another guideline to follow potentially is you start by really trying not to be hostile and accusatory. And then as soon as you detect, which is hard to do, honestly, that the two of you, one or both of you, have entered into that zone, is to have some kind of safety net where you either you yourself say, okay, I need a 5-minute break, or can we take a 10-minute break or something? Or, okay, we need to reset. Let me recenter. I'm getting into that mindset again of anger and hostility. Okay, let me deep breath. So it's important to manage that, because if you don't, then you're just going to yell at each other and you won't resolve anything, and you could really contribute to the negativity and the harm and the hurt.
Yeah.
You cooled off?
I'm cooled off.
Good.
I think we both just need to calm down. We just moved to Miami. We don't need to be arguing like this.
So we see that for Stacy, she is trying to bridge the gap by saying, I think we both need to. It would be more differentiated for her to speak about herself and be like, hey, I think I'm kind of triggered right now. I don't know about you. And I was jabbing at you earlier, which is my fault. I think you were to blame for a couple of things too, but I want to get into that right now. But I know from my side, I was, you could say something like that. But at the very least, she's trying to smooth things over by leading the way, by saying we've both done things that were unfortunate. Which is notable because I'm trying to remember if Darcey has ever done that for anyone on the show, where she has led the way with some, even if it's a low level of differentiation of the self.
We need to be a team. We have to just come together.
That's interesting. So at first I'm like, that's your makeup statement. That's your thesis here, is we have to be a team. We have to come together. I don't know if that, maybe it's kind of an olive branch, but then when I think about it a little bit longer, the two of them seemingly operate on an enmeshed level, right? That we have to think the same, we have to be the same, we have to look the same, we have to have kids at the same time, we have to get married at the same time, we have to talk the same, we have to do the same, we have to have the same career. Everything has to be the same or else. And I don't know about these two, but the enmeshment worry is the or else. It's, a lot of times people will talk about enmeshment, or what the internet will call codependency, which it's not codependency, overdependency, as it's just this weakness or something. Like, oh, look at those people, they're so dependent on each other. Instead of thinking, well, what are they running from? Because there's a sacrifice. When you enmesh with another person and you give up your own freedom and your own individuality, there's a sacrifice and you feel it. So there's a reason why the individuals are sacrificing that. There's something terrifying. There's something scary. And I can only speculate that for the two of them, there were a lot of bad things that happened outside of their relationship. And the two of them probably believe that if they're on their own, no one will like them, no one will love them. The show plays into that, right? I doubt they would have a show if they weren't twins, if they didn't look similar, which is kind of weird to think about, right? If it was just Darcey or just Stacey and the other twin didn't exist, would they have such a long-standing career? I think their whole idea going way back, way before they were even on 90 Day Fiancé, was to try to play up their twinness, their twin status, as a way of trying to differentiate themselves, it's a gimmick, I suppose. And so the show plays into that. But it's interesting that for Stacey, and I wonder if that is what will work, of like, Darcey, we have to enmesh, which means you cannot think for yourself. In this moment, you are thinking for yourself, and I'm thinking for myself. We can't do that. We have to put ourselves aside and uphold this twin enmeshment at this, because we know what will happen. I don't know what their worry is exactly, probably some form of rejection. We know what will happen if we don't.
My attitude pushes guys away, but
We both say things we don't mean
Stacey,
in
I
the
know,
heat of the
but,
moment.
we came here for business, and that's where my mindset is, and I don't want to continue that toxic cycle's not where we need to be at. So forgive and forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, forgive and forget, baby, that is helpful. Maybe it's healthy. It's also possible that it's just sweeping it under the rug because of the enmeshment. A lot of enmeshed relationships will do that. They will sweep things under the rug. They will deny things, because in order to have a real conversation about this, you have to acknowledge that the individuals are different and that they have differences, that they have hurts, that they have conflicts. And that can be so threatening to the enmeshment that it's better just to sweep it under the rug and avoid the whole thing.
Focus on yourself, okay? Because I'm over all this.
All right. Well,
Okay.
Florian got the car if you want to come. You're more than
I'm
welcome.
going home.
And then we see Darcey's response of focus on yourself because I'm over all this thing. It's hard to know what's being communicated. Just very dismissive conversation going both ways. But it's possible that Darcey is communicating something positive to Stacey in this moment of like, look, I'm just over this, meaning I'm no longer going to focus on this negativity. And that's my olive branch, is that dismissive, I'm just over this right now. I'm just over this BS right now. And maybe that is something that will be communicated. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't look extremely healthy, but there are a lot of ways in which we can communicate things in a healthy way, meaning that it resolves the conflict to the degree that it can be, and builds the relationship in a positive way, builds trust, builds open communication, builds understanding. I don't know if that's what's happening right here. It doesn't look like it.
Owner, he's very successful, so I'm excited to see where this may lead.
This restaurant really offers an experience. So I took the liberty to order your food.
It's a little strange that Mike's ordering for me without asking me what I wanted. But at the same time, it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air because he's taking charge. And
That would bug the crap out of me. It seems to bug her a little bit, but she's open to it. You would probably want to ask someone, do you have any dietary needs? What do you like? But whatever, maybe it's considered a romantic thing. Now, it is a tiny, tiny, tiny little indication of a problem of control and coerciveness from an individual to do that. It's not a guarantee, of course, but if I were Darcey, I'd be like, let's start watching for some red flags that he needs to be in control. Not that he just is offering to help, but that he needs to have that control over me. And this is that first indication. Sometimes abusive people will actually do stuff like this on the first date as a way of testing the waters to see if you are susceptible to being victimized like this. Because if, for example, Darcey was like, hey, super cool of you that you order for me, but just to let you know, like, that's not really what I'm looking for. I like to order my own food and I like to choose for myself. You could certainly offer that in the future, but hey, and super nice of you. Yeah, let's keep going with this. But in the future, I just really like a heads up on that because I'm particular. Plus, I have preferences, and if Darcey had said that, then an abusive individual would get the clear message, at least with that moment, that, oh, this person thinks for themselves, they have boundaries, they don't like it when I am in control all the time. And so the abusive person will decide not to go on a second date, Now, I want to be clear that for the vast majority of what we might call abusive people, that they're not doing this consciously. Some are doing this consciously. They actually know, okay, I'm going to do this. That'll test the waters. There are other things that they'll do as well, but I won't get into it right now. And then most people, though, they are just anxious about the relationship in the beginning and are desperately trying to make it work. And their way of making it work is to slot themselves into these rigid roles where they feel safe. They're moving towards safety, and their version of moving towards safety is to gain control over someone else, which of course is abusive.
Breath of fresh air, because he's taking charge, and the guys that I used to date never did that for me.
The other thing we're seeing here, and this is going to be hard to watch, I think, that Darcey has done this every time. Now, maybe this time will be different. I don't think it will be. I say that to emotionally prepare myself. I always have optimism. I'm not sure why. And then I get blindsided by what is highly predictable. And then it makes me feel bad personally. I care and I worry, and to watch it happen, even as I say that, I'm preparing myself. Most of me still has optimism about it, which is, I guess, something about me that I'm just not going to be able to get rid of right now. But, well, what is that actually? What is that about? Why do I have optimism? Why do I need optimism? So if I apply this sort of model to myself, there must be some need there. There must be something I'm running from, something I'm afraid of, something I'm scared of. What am I scared of if I just acknowledge that she's doomed? I mean, on the surface, I don't know if this is what's really happening. I don't want to watch someone suffer. That doesn't feel good to me. I don't want to, we watch this show and it's just this frivolous thing. You might even consider it to be this brain dead activity that you do at the end of the night where you just want to you don't want to think, you don't want to watch. Me and my wife were talking about how, you're getting old when you start saying phrases like movies today, ... And one of the things that we lament is movies today are dour and depressing and sad and traumatic. Now, I love a good, dour, depressing, sad. I grew up loving Depeche Mode and The Cure, and I write songs, and I've always written music. And I once had an uncle. I have an uncle, and once he said to me, "Yeah, your music is nice, but why is every song so sad and so angry?" I just thought, is it? Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just art and expression. And anyway, so I'm into it. I like it, but it can be a lot, right? And so it's hard. It's hard to deal with. Why am I talking about that? Anyway, so I guess for me, so that's the surface, is that I worry. I don't want bad things to happen to her. She really, really that's what I was saying, is that sometimes you just want something frivolous to watch. You don't want to watch all the dour, depressing, difficult, hard to watch movies. You just want to watch reality TV and kick back. So for y'all, you might go into that mode, and that's fine. But it's important to recognize that I think Darcey is really trying to get something fundamental to her, something fundamental that she might not have ever had in her life, even with her parents. I don't know that. But there are some signs that she's never had true attunement and companionship and love and attention and loyalty and security and safety and all that we all want. So there's a real chance we're watching something really serious right now with her. And so I feel that, I think. But what else? There's got to be something wrong with me. There's got to be something else there. Like, I just I need it to work out. I want it to work out. Why do I need that? I guess it's possible that as a therapist or a human being, I feel responsible for other people's problems. And when I watch these shows, I don't want to have to wrestle with that I have to, I guess, subconsciously feel like I'm failing while I'm watching, which of course is ridiculous. But, the subconscious doesn't necessarily know that I'm watching a television show. They might think, my subconscious, they might think that I actually am in contact with her, and thus if she's having repeated train wrecks, then somehow it's my fault, and that would be a sensitivity of a lot of people, but I think particularly for me. I guess by extension, as a therapist, I'm not responsible for people's lives, of course, but I am responsible as a professional to do the best I can to help, whether or not it helps or not, but I am responsible for trying and doing best by my clients. And so when things don't work out, it's at least a potential sign that I'm actually not doing the best, that I'm not good at this job as a therapist. So of course I'm not her therapist, but that feeling, so maybe that's what I'm running from. Or I don't know, I just am afraid of things that are going to fall apart and everyone's sad, and I don't know why I'd be afraid. I mean, I don't have any particular early childhood traumas. Anyway, something to think about as I move forward. But yeah, even so, I have to emotionally prepare for all that, and part of that is to cognitively tell myself, like, remember that it's probably not going to work out. So what we've seen in the past, we're seeing signs of it right now, where the way that I frame it is that she will fairy tale-ize the beginning of a relationship with a romantic partner, and she will have this all good, all bad perspective. It's everything is wonderful, and he's so great, and all my past men have never treated me this way. We've heard the exact same phrases. I mean, if I had it in me to do it, I would actually go back and just show you the exact sentences, or at least something very similar, when she was dating Jesse, when she was dating Tom, when she was dating Georgie. I mean, we've heard it before, right? So she has this mode that she goes into where it's just like he's the best. I didn't react to or show you scenes where she's already done that. They met on a yacht party, which I don't know. It just, people can have parties however they want to. It just dripped with classism and ridiculousness, materialism. It's like, who cares that anyway. Like that whole thing in this show really triggers it for me. Like the I don't know what you call it, just materialism, classism. Yeah, I mean, just think of it as you will in terms of what I'm referring to on the show. The things that are privileged on the show, the things that are held up as like, look, this is successful, this is good, this, if you don't have this, you are not good, that kind of thing. And it's just, this show is rife with that kind of, like they had a friend there. We met someone in Miami, and this young woman, and she's really in connection with the rich people and the successful people, and that kind of stuff. That's all that she could say about this new friend, was that she was in connection with rich people and with people that have yachts and people that are fancy people, and they didn't create that. Darcey and Stacey did not make up classism. They're a product of it. We all are. I can't get away from it either. It's all been internalized in me as well. And so it's something we have to wrestle with. So I'm not blaming them, but classism as a whole around the world, because it's not just the United States, right? It's as far as I can tell, it's everywhere. Maybe there's some small pockets, small communities where it's not there, or it is very much lesser. I've witnessed that before too, but the classism that is shown on this show and the messages, it is disgusting, and it causes so many problems in our society, in the political sphere, in the relational sphere, in the personal self-esteem sphere, in the ruining of our planet. I mean, you could argue that a good portion of the ruining of our planet is because of materialism, which is usually a major factor in materialism is classism, because the more things you have, the more fancy things you have, the higher class you are, and thus the more worthy you are as a human being. And then, of course, to dispose of all your disposable things to the lower classes, and then they have to deal with it in other countries, and then they dump it into the ocean. It just, I'm not speaking very articulate right now, but anyway, so she will fairy tale-ize the situation in the beginning. And why would she do that? Why would she do that? Well, my hypothesis, and there's not a ton of evidence, but the best one I think I developed in the past was that she is so desperate, as all of us are, for attachment and romantic companionship. And she's particularly desperate about it because she, I think in her perception, has never had it, and she might believe she's not worthy of it. And therefore, she enters into this black and white thinking where everything is wonderful. He is the best because he has to be the best, because if he's not the best, then this will not work out and it'll just be another failure of mine. And I need him to elevate me in terms of class, because we all understand what low class means. I don't know how she might have gotten particularly desperate about it. I could absolutely see her dad injecting those thoughts into her head. Oftentimes, classism can come from previous generations as a result of real tangible reasons why you go back even today, but in some families you go back a couple generations and there were people, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, who were put in a very unsafe position because they were lower class. For example, with my family, my great-grandparents, my grandparents were imprisoned because they were Japanese. And because of the racist policy and the racist people, the racist white people of the United States, they were worried at the beginning of World War II that the Japanese citizens who were born in the United States, often the politicians who were voting for these things, they weren't even born in, my ancestors were more American than the people who were voting, particularly the other white Americans who were, wanting this policy to be passed. And they passed a law, and the president signed it, FDR signed it, that imprisoned my people, thousands and thousands of people, for no reason other than the fact that they were of Japanese ancestry and they weren't white. And we didn't do it to Japanese people, or we didn't do it to Germans, we didn't do it to Italians. We did it to Japanese people. Yeah, I've been over this before, but my point is that for my family, they could internalize the message of, we need to be as American as possible, and we need to be as non-Japanese as possible. Our skin needs to be as white as possible. We need to do everything like other Americans do, because the fact that we stood out in 1943, 1942 meant that all of us were not only in prison, but their businesses were taken away, their homes were taken away, because you can't pay your bills. So you will lose your house. There were no accommodations made. It's not like the government said, we'll pay your bills, we'll pay, we'll give you your land back that you worked hard for possibly 50 years, like in my family. They worked hard for decades to build a farm, to have a hotel in Central Washington, this kind of thing. And so, they lost everything. And then after the war, they're just released and say, okay, you're free. And free to do what? Go where? We have nothing. We've lost everything. We had to leave you could only carry with you, think about for yourself, right? Well, just while I'm on this topic. Just think about for yourself that the government right now decides that you, because of the color of your skin or because of your ancestry, you have to go to prison. That's the only reason. Like say all Russians because Russia and Ukraine, or I don't know, or all Muslims because of something that happens with one Muslim in the world. Anyway, so right now you have to go to prison, and you get to bring one bag, one suitcase that you can carry. That's it. You have to fit every possession that you own in your entire house. Think about that. What you can carry in one bag. That's what they did to my ancestors. They said you can bring one bag, each of you, what you can carry. Everything else, lost, left behind. Now, occasionally there would be a nice white person that would watch over the house and make sure that their things weren't stolen, but that was rare. And even with that, there would be vandals that would come by and burn the houses down, or steal stuff from the house because everyone, because they were Japanese. They knew, oh, that's the Japanese house, let's loot their house, that kind of thing. So why am I going with that? I'm going with that because it's possible that for Darcey and her dad, that somewhere in their history there was some kind of survival question that related to class. And so those messages get passed down, and you'll get these messages from your parents that it's like, you must be prestigious, you must have an awesome degree. In some communities, you'll have this message like, you must be a doctor, you must be a lawyer. Or in other communities, you must be super rich, you must have a mansion on a hill, you must have diamond rings, you must have all the fancy things, you must speak a certain way, you must eschew all things that are low class. So I don't know, it's interesting to think about. I have no data around that, but I could see the dad seemingly was a workaholic, seemingly worked too much for his own good and his family's good. So anyway, I think that's another reason why she fairy taleizes it, is because she's desperate to not only make it like he loves me and he's the best and he's perfect because I need it to be perfect, but also he's high class and he has riches. Because I think in the past, she would look at the Jesse. I think she also might. I don't want to say this, but there's a possibility that she sees European people as higher class just arbitrarily, because she has admitted that she has a thing for European men. There is an American heuristic that it's just like, Americans are all cowboys and low class, and Europe is all fancy and stuff. It's just like, it's ridiculous, to even think along those lines, but also that generalization. Anyway, so I think we're going to watch another fairy taleizing, and it's going to not make me feel great. All right, well, that is it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.